Imagine you have a pretty happy person. They take care of their mental health for the most part. Maybe they journal, meditate, go to therapy. They're pretty positive and happy and satisfied with their life. And they've got really good relationships. Their family's really happy and healthy. They've got a good marriage or whatever. Kids are good, friends are good, everything. Their spirituality even is great. In their career, they're successful, making enough money to be comfortable. They enjoy their work, all that. Now, this person has, for whatever reason, been stranded in an airport for 48 hours. They haven't slept in 48 hours. They've been eating nothing but airport snacks and fast food, and they haven't been able to move their body hardly at all or exercise. How happy is that person going to be in that moment? Probably not so much, right? And so, yeah, they may still be satisfied with their lives, but they're not going to be experiencing much happiness. So I just start the video because it's important not to overlook that your biology, the physical foundation, what we think of as maybe your physical health and physical energy, is a big component of your mood and happiness, both moment to moment, day to day, and over the long run. So in this video, we're going to basically just talk about the connection between this physical, biological dimension and happiness, and I'm going to give you some very simple tools and protocols that you can set up as a kind of foundation for happiness and well-being. So these are the three pillars. When we think about physical health, it comes down to exercise, sleep, and nutrition. So how about exercise first? Consider this. Exercise isn't just about feeling better, it's about bringing you back to baseline. So in an interview with the pioneering happiness studies professor, Tal Ben-Shahar, love his work, they asked, what's the most important thing for happiness? And he said, look, let's be simple. If I were a therapist, the first question I would ask people is, are you exercising? Because as human beings, we're meant to move our bodies and use our bodies every day. And so it's not even so much, again, about being happier as much as just bringing you back to baseline levels for your energy, mood, and focus. In fact, exercise has been shown to be as or equally effective as prescription antidepressants in several different studies. So I want to be important there. Maybe if you take antidepressants or you're considering that or something, most of the literature suggests that for people with moderate to severe depression, maybe a combination of those two things are ideal. So don't get me wrong that I'm saying, you have to throw pharmacological interventions away. We need to do a more nuanced discussion there because there are some pros and some serious cons. But suffice to say that just as buffering your baseline levels of mental health, exercise is essential. We may think of it as a natural antidepressant. Exercise brings blood flow to the brain. That's one of the main drivers of the beneficial effects. So this is supporting brain health. And maybe as we get into a protocol here, here's a simple one to think about. I want you to break a sweat almost every day. Break a sweat almost every day, roughly 30 minutes. And here's what I mean. The CDC, the DHS, most physician guidelines recommend 2.5 to 3 hours of moderate intensity exercise every week minimum. Well, what does that look like? So we can break that down. Let's say you're doing half an hour, 5 or 6 days a week. Right there, that's 2.5 to 3 hours. And so it should be some combination of moderate intensity cardio, which is where you're basically getting your heart rate up enough to break a sweat. You can still carry on a conversation. You can look up zone 2 cardio if you want to get a bit more technical. And some combination of strength training, which is moving heavy things, right? Working out your entire body. And now as a bonus, I'll include this. It's a bit more technical, but stay with me. Maybe once a week, you're training something called VO2 max. And I say that because VO2 max is associated with reductions in all-cause mortality. That means if you have a higher VO2 max, which is your maximal aerobic output, you are less likely to die. And it's hard to be happy if you're dead. So maybe once a week, every couple weeks, train VO2 max. A simple protocol for that is the one I do, the Swedish 4x4, which means for about 4 minutes, you're almost maxing out. So you're at like 90% of your maximum heart rate. Again, you can look that up for your age and gender. Do that for 4 minutes, rest 4 minutes. 4 minutes max, 4 minutes rest, and you do that for 4 rounds. It's not a whole lot of fun. So if you're just getting started with this, you can scale that down. But again, the basic guideline here, because I want this video to be simple and practical as opposed to the perfectly optimal fitness routine, aim for 30 minutes, 5-6 days a week, moderate intensity exercise. You're lifting heavy things, you're breaking a sweat with some cardio, or once in a while, you're doing a VO2 max training. Okay, how about sleep? So sleep is absolutely critical. Here's some data points. Men who sleep 5 to 6 hours a night have the level of testosterone of someone 10 years older than them. Consistently undersleeping leads to reductions in both physical stamina and muscular output like grip strength and jump height, somewhere between 20 to 30% loss in those areas. It causes you to eat more. Estimates range from 200 to 300 calories a day extra. Has to do with your hormone regulation, that you tend to eat more and seek out less healthy foods when you are underslept. And then finally, there are tons of associations between mental disorders, depression, anxiety, etc., and just physical health issues, heart disease, stroke, diabetes, etc. So sleep is probably the single most important tool for recovery and physical energy, and maybe even for happiness. So think about this. This is from Matthew Walker, one of the world's top sleep scientists. He talks about QQRT as sort of an equation for good sleep. Quantity, quality, regularity, and timing. Quantity, I have a little bit of bad news here. Average person is about an 80 to 90% sleep efficiency. What that means is that if you're in bed for 8 hours, that might actually only be 6.4 or 6.4 to 7 hours of sleep. So I want you to aim for closer to 9 hours. I know that's going to be hard for some of you, but say I want to try to be in bed for 9 hours so that even if I'm at 80% sleep efficiency, that would be 0.8 times 9 is 7.2. So you're still over that bare minimum 7 hours. So you want to be in bed more. You want to think about the quality, which has to do with being in a cool, dark, quiet room. If you have sleep issues, you get those addressed, whether it's a CPAP machine, other interventions, whatever. Making sure you're comfortable, you're not waking up throughout the night. Regularity, this means whenever possible, keep it consistent. Same bedtime, same wake time. That's an important part of sleep hygiene. And then timing, again, it's tough depending on your career, but this means that you can align your sleep schedule to your natural biological clock. Some people naturally wake up around 5 a.m. and they're ready to go. Some people, it's more like 8 or 9 a.m. Night owl, morning lark. There's a real genetic thing for that. So look into what yours is, or just reflect on what yours is, and you can try to align it with that. All right, lastly, nutrition. There are a million different things I could do here, paleo, vegan, keto, all that. So I want to stick to my lane, which is happiness. Dr. Chris Palmer is a Harvard-trained psychiatrist who's really important work on this subject. He talks about the link between mental disorders and metabolic disorders. I recently heard him cite a data point that was something to the effect of those who eat an ultra-processed diet, so like ultra-processed food multiple times a day, versus people who have like the healthiest diet, something like a 3x difference in their mental health outcomes. Of course, the people not eating so well, far more likely to develop mental disorders. Ruth Veenhoven and Felice Jacka, two other researchers who look at the food-mood connection, and they generally find that eating more fruits and veggies, more whole foods, things we think of as healthy, support not only our physical health, but our mental health. They're starting to think that has to do as well with the gut microbiome. So here's really basic guidance, okay? I can sum up to you every workout, nutrition, healthy diet thing out there. Try to stick to this rule. If it doesn't have a face or it doesn't grow, don't eat it. Meaning, if it's not an animal, right, some sort of like naturally existing animal, and it doesn't grow, right, so it's not a fruit, a vegetable, a plant, or some sort, probably try to avoid it, right, because it's not real food. Like a bar, a protein bar that's like this weird shaped, or like a fruit snack, right? It's like, that is not food, okay? So just try to remember that, and it's hard to be perfect on this one, right, but just general guidance. If it doesn't have a face, it doesn't grow, don't eat it. So that means you're eating fruits, vegetables, nuts, meat, maybe a little bit of dairy if that works for you, whatever. Okay, so let's just recap this with a checklist because I want to be super practical here for biology. Look, you're thinking about 5-6 times a week, get 30 minutes of a workout. If you already have a workout plan that works for you, that's fine. But that's just some basic guidance, right, where you're breaking a sweat, move heavy things, do some cardio. Trying to be in bed close to 9 hours, getting quantity, quality, regular sleep that aligns with your timing, and try to eat real food. And if you do all these things, you're gonna get the physical foundation for happiness right. So this video is part of my Happiness PhD project course, as well as videos. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.